Greetings everyone, I'm Kevin and it's time to play YaTBRzy for July. But before we play the game, let's see how I did in June. The first prompt that I got was a book that was turned into a hidden movie, and for that prompt I read The Notebook and I did finish this book. The second prompt that I got was a book that dealt with grief, and for that I read My Name Was Kyoko and I did finish this. The third prompt was DNF, and for that I read If I Was Your Girl by Meredith Russo and I did finish this book. The fourth prompt was Romani Protagonist. I read Kaditsi and I finished it. Then we got a title prompt for Running with Lions and I did read that book. And then I got another title and it was for Sovereign by April Daniels and I did read this. The next was the prompt East Asian, and for that I read YaTBRzy Spirits and I did finish it. The next prompt was Royals and I read Daughters of Nari and I did read it. I did complete it. Then we got the prompt Floral Cover and I read This Time Will Be Different because the back it has florals on the cover and I did complete this. Then I got a punishment to read over 600 pages and for that I picked The Prior of the Orange Tree and I did complete this. The last prompt that I got was a book turned into a loved movie, and for that I read Crazy Rich Asians and I did complete it. And then because of the monthly challenge that I did last month, which was Reading Rainbow, I chose outside of YaTBRzy, I chose Meet Cute Club for the prompt Pink and I did read it. So I finished all 12 books that I set out to read in June. So I won't have to take a single punishment prompt for books, but I don't know, maybe I will cross something out or something. I hope not. But before we play YaTBRzy, we're going to see what the monthly challenge for July will be. So whatever comes up on this, I will either have to pick 5 books or whatever it says. Sometimes like the 5 books, even though it's like read 5, it doesn't apply for some of these. So we're gonna see what I will get. And I get Through the Decades. Okay, so this is what the little thing looks like. It is from 1900, 1910, 20, 30, 40 until 1990. And what this is, it's like I have to read a book that is either taking place in one of these decades or was written in one of the decades or like published. So if like The Great Gatsby would of course be 20s, and like for These Violent Delights it's set in the 1920s in Shanghai, but it wasn't written in the 1900s, it was written like in the 2020s, but I would still count it as 1920 because that's where it was set. You know what I mean? Yeah, so this is the challenge this month. But now that we have the monthly challenge, I'm also going to go through the books that I'm going to read for OlympicsAthon, because in July and August, I will participate in one readathon, and it is OlympicsAthon, hosted by the lovely Charlott from ClumsyCharlott. And the books I'm going to read for OlympicsAthon are Star Trek The Motion Picture for a cover with black, blue, green, red, and yellow on the cover. It has all of those. And then Finders Keepers for a book set in Oceania. Confessions of a Mask for a book set in Japan, Asia. Allt går sönder by YaTBRzy for a book set in Africa and translated. The same thing with Confessions of a Mask translated book. Like we should read, a bonus prompt is reading books from 5 different continents and 5 translated works. Then we have Die Verbote von Panem, which is the Hunger Games series in German. I'm going to read these for sports, disability representation, and fire in the title, or fire on the cover, fire related thing on the cover, as well as North America because it's set in the US, and translated because it was originally written in English and I'm reading it in German. So with the prompts that I get from YaTBRzy, I will have to try and fit them both for the books I'm reading for OlympicsAthon, but also for through the decades, because no matter what, I have to pick out 5 books to read through the decades now, because those will be counted towards YaTBRzy. So without further ado, let's do the first roll. Roll 1. The good thing is, it's empty. I can do whatever I want. I'm gonna start with the 2s. Okay, I'm gonna end up with 3 2s, so that is 6. So for July, August, I will put in 6 here. So, and that is a yellow card. So the first yellow card, the first prompt is romance. Like, this worked out really well for me because I'm going to read Finders Keepers by Anna Walker. It is a meal romance, and I'm going to read this for OlympicsAthon anyways, as I said. So we have Griffin, who is this guy. He just moves to this new place in Australia, trying to kind of like, because he's starting a new job or something like that, but he moves. And he's trying to kind of navigate this new place. And when he goes to the beach, he finds a dog who is not in a good shape. And for a while, Griffin is just like, where's your owner, little dude? Where is your owner? The owner doesn't show up. So Griffin takes the dog in, takes care of him and stuff. And then after a while, he finds the owner and gets in touch with the owner. And the owner is this guy called Dane, who traveled for work. So he was out of town. He left the dog with his parents, but they left kind of like the door open or something. So he snuck out, and Griffin and Dane kind of start this kind of texting relationship over the dog. And it's really cute. Both of them are queer, but it's a male romance, and it involves this cute dog. I love this book. I've read this at least 2 times already in 2020. So now I get to read it for 2021. I'm really excited for it. I love this book, so I'm going to read this for romance. The second roll is... I'm gonna go with the 5 and the 6 this time. Keeping the 6. I'm doing this. Ooh, okay, good. Okay, good. I'm going to take that as free of a kind. So that is 18 for free of a kind. Which means it's a title. And the title is 49. 49. And as you know from previous YaTBRzy videos, the number on the red pile, which is the title pile, correlate to a number on my want to read list on Goodreads. And the book on number 49 is The Husband's Secret by Liane Moriarty. So this is kind of like a story. We have this married couple, and the husband, he wrote a letter to open when he dies, and the wife stumbles upon the letter while the husband is alive, and she opens the letter. And this letter contains some of his deepest, darkest secrets and stuff. And yeah, so it's kind of like what will happen, because it was never the point of that letter to be opened while he was alive. So that's very intriguing, like what is in this letter that will have the possibility of ruining everything, kind of. So excited to get to this. It does, however, not fit in any prompt for Through the Decades, because as far as I know, this is set in our contemporary society, and it's written in 2013, so it doesn't fit that. So, but I'm gonna read this anyways. Roll number 3. Again with the 6. Okay, I'm gonna keep the 6s because maybe if not anything, I can keep it as a pair. And then that is 3 again. So maybe I can do 18 here. Or I'm gonna do a pair. That feels safer. So that is another title, and this time it is 9. 6. I know that I said that it was 9, but I kind of like, I went and like, here we have 49, and this doesn't look that 9. So this has to be 6, right? So this is number 6 instead. And number 6 on my Goodreads list is Twice in a Blue Moon by Christina Lauren. I love Christina Lauren. I think they're great. Like, they are a relationship, a romance author duo. So they are 2 women called Christina and Lauren. And they write romance novels together. I have never read Twice in a Blue Moon. I've read like the majority of the other works that they've done, except for like the Beautiful Bastard series. I don't know if that's what they call that series. I haven't read, but like a lot of the other books that they've read, the other books that they've written, I have read. So I'm going to read Twice in a Blue Moon. I don't really know what it's about. I've heard that it's kind of like on the sad side of things, but I don't know that much more, except that it's by Christina Lauren. So I expect it to be very heartfelt and romance heavy. So, turn 4. Oh shit, that was a 5. No, it was a 5. So, I'm keeping the 5s. Ja, Tina. Oh my god! Yay! We're back at it with like the love of the 5s. I'm gonna say no, of course I'm gonna put it here on YaTBRzy. Yay! So I mean, like, this is amazing. So that is another red card, which just means another title, and this time it is 42. 42. Oh my god. I got a YaTBRzy. I feel like since I hadn't gotten a YaTBRzy for the past 4 months, like the 2 rows, after like January and February, I got a YaTBRzy. Then nothing. And now, on like the first month that I play for that row, I got a YaTBRzy, and it's my favorite color. I am all over the place today. I'm so sorry. My favorite number, of course, 5 isn't a color. But if it would be yellow, because yellow is my favorite color. But as you know, 42 correlates to a number on Goodreads, and it is The Ship We Built by Lexi Bean. This is kind of like a story of this queer kid who comes from a toxic family, and they're trying to kind of navigate who they are and finding friends and dealing with all of the issues that are going on inside of them and around them. And I know that this is going to be a very difficult book for me to read, because I come from, like, I mean, I'm a queer person, and I come from a toxic family and household and stuff like that, so I know that I can relate a lot to the main character. I know that it says in the synopsis that at night his dad hurts him in ways he's not ready to talk about yet, and that makes me think that it's either physical abuse or sexual abuse. And I know that that is going to be very difficult reading. So I'm a little bit scared to read this, because it might be very triggering. It might be very like difficult to get through, but I think it's going to be a very important read. And yeah, I'm scared. And this book does not fit through the decades either. It is written in our contemporary society. It was published in 2020, and from what I understand, it is also set in our, like, in the 2000s. So then we're moving on from 5s to turn 5. Like, I feel like I have a lot of like luck at the current moment, so maybe I can get this to 5. Oh shit, that was a 4. So, just one of them in order. And a 5. A 3, okay. I'm not gonna take this on chance or anything, so I'm gonna just do I think what would be like the smartest is take this on 1, so I'm just putting in 1, 1. Because like putting in 6 on freeze, I could get a lot more for free. So that is a yellow card, and it is roll a dice. If it starts with 1, 2, if I get a 1, it starts with A, if it's, and so on. Okay. So I roll this die, and depending on what it comes on, I will read a book starting with that letter. And it fell off. Take 2. 6. I am going to read a book starting with the letter F. Book starting with F. And for this, because I need to be kind to myself, I'm going to read Dita Bote von Panem Flammendelzon. It starts with F. This is Mockingjay, and the title is Flammendelzon. It means flaming anger or flaming rage or something like that. And I'm going to read this book for a book that has something to do with fire on the cover, or a fire related word or thing, and flame has to do with fire, so I'm reading this for the fire prompt for OlympicsAthon, and for a book starting with the letter F for YaTBRzy. It does not fit through the decades. I think that is going to be very difficult, but we're gonna see how I will get around to picking 5 books for that specifically. But I'm reading this for a book starting with the letter F. Turn 6, roll 1. That was a 6. It would have gone well if it was a 4, but it was a 6. So I'm putting those away and those away. And okay, so that is 2 pairs. So that would be 18. So I will take it here on 2 pairs, and it's 18. That's a nice number, I think. So that is a yellow card. And this time we get sports. Sports. This worked out really well because there is, on OlympicsAthon, there is a prompt that is specifically has to do with a sport or includes some kind of sport. And so I'm reading YaTBRzy, which is the first book in the Hunger Games series. So this is Hunger Games, but in German. And a Hunger Games is a kind of sport that is happening in Panem, which is why it's like the tribute from Panem. So I'm reading this for sports and for the OlympicsAthon. Turn 6, roll 1. I'm gonna keep the 6s. I don't know what for though. Maybe a 4 of a kind. Maybe I can get a 4 of a kind. If anything, I need 6s anyway, so last roll. Yay, 4 of a kind! And that will be here. So that is 24. That's the highest I've ever gotten for this, and it's a red card. This is, there's a lot of red cards, I feel. And it is 24. 24. So we have another book that I do not own that is for that is a number on my want to read list on Goodreads, and it is Heart of Iron. All I know about this book is that it's a sci-fi fantasy and that it has queer elements in it. I don't know that much more about it, and I kind of want to keep it that way. It has an android in it, which I think is really, really cool. So I'm going to read this book for YaTBRzy as well. Last turn, roll 1. I mean, I have to go with the 6s again. I feel like the 6s and the 5s have been very kind to me today. Okay. Then I'm just putting in 18 on 6s up here. So, and that isn't the highest possible, so it's not a red card. Instead, it's a yellow card. So we go with this. And it is New Book by Fave Author. New book by favorite author. That is the last prompt, a new book by a favorite author. So for the prompt, new book by favorite author, I'm going to read One Last Stop. This is literally also the only book on my shelves, like on my on my unread shelves, that is from an author that I've actually read from, and I did enjoy Red, White, and Royal Brew. That would be a completely different book, but the Red, White, and Royal Blue, I did enjoy that book, and this is from Casey McQuiston, who is the author of that book too, and this is her second book, and it is One Last Stop, and this is a sapphic romance between a lesbian and a bisexual. I think it's sapphic, it doesn't matter, like it's female-female relationship, sapphic, and it involves this train, and we have this girl here in the leather jacket. She is displaced in time. She is, in her mind, she is in the 1970s, while the other girl is in the 21st century. So I'm going to read this for a book from a new book from a favorite author, and for the prompt in 1970 in Through the Decades. So that is one book done for Through the Decades. So that was all of the books for YaTBRzy. So now I'm gonna pick out 4 books that are specifically for Through the Decades. And so we have 1970 done. So that is just me trying to find books to fit in other decades. So the first book I'm adding for Through the Decades is Adnan. This is a novel in verse, so it's not going to be too difficult to get through, I think, even though it's very big. This is the story of like the Sami in Sweden, in northern half of Sweden where I live. The Sami are one of our, or several of our indigenous peoples in Sweden and in Finland and in Norway, and in a part of Russia that is like closest to us, we have the Sami, and this is the story of being Sami throughout the 1900s. It starts off in the 1910s, and a big chunk of the book is during the 1910s, and that's why I am going to read this for the 1910s specifically, even though it is like a larger span than just the 1910s. And I think this is going to be very interesting because this is the story of what the Sami went through throughout the 1900s. So from a Sami perspective as well. And the word Adnan is North Sami for the land, the mare, the land, the dirt, the ground. So that's what I assume is Sápmi. Sápmi is the land of the Sami. And so Adnan is just the land. That's what the word means, land in North Sami. There are a lot of dialects of Sami that are individual languages that rarely understand what the other one says. But I think it's going to be very interesting to learn about the 1900s in Swedish history from a Sami perspective and learn what they went through, because unfortunately, we don't really talk that much about the Sami, especially like the southern half of Sweden don't really talk about the Sami that much. Like the only times you really talk about them and you see them and stuff, it's in the northern half of Sweden where I live. So I'm gonna read this for the 1910s for Through the Decades. Then I'm going to read The Great Gatsby for 1920s. I really browsed and like tried to find books to fit, and I ended up feeling like it's going to be too much for me, so I decided I'm going to go with a relatively small. The text in this book is extremely small, so it isn't as tiny as it feels, or as it looks, or as it seems, but I still feel like this is going to be a quicker read than if I would pick up another book that is a little thicker, because OlympicsAthon, YaTBRzy, and now Through the Decades, which I am happy that I got to kind of push them together. I guess this is the first time I'm not really happy I got title cards, with the numbers. Usually the point of them is, like, I call them the amazing pile, because I don't have to think about what book to pick because it chooses a book for me. But that's the problem, because that way I couldn't like match the prompt to a book that I had to read for OlympicsAthon or for the monthly challenge, which this month is For the Decades. So that's unfortunate that I got so many highest possible points for a certain thing, including YaTBRzy. So yeah, but I'm gonna read The Great Gatsby for the 20s. It is an American classic about this guy called, what is his first name? Jay Gatsby. And he comes from nothing and he's made something of himself, and he has these like extravagant parties, and all he wants is kind of like to get a certain woman back, and she moved on from him and she is in love and she has a fiance, I think, and Jay Gatsby wants her back. So that is also like a reason why he has these extravagant parties. He always invites her and he hopes that she will arrive and that she will be part of parties and stuff. So yeah, it's been a while since I read this. So this is a reread after like 5 years. So reading this for 1920s. Then I got to bring in Confessions of a Mask, which I'm reading for OlympicsAthon. This book is set during World War II, so it's set in the 40s, the 1940s. We're following this homosexual Japanese man, and as he's trying to figure everything out, coming to terms with his sexual orientation and finding his place in this war-torn Japan. And like that is kind of like the gist of this. It is also very like relatively short, and I'm reading this for OlympicsAthon, so that went up great. And I'm reading this for the 1940s, if I didn't say so. Then the last book I'm reading for the Decades is also short, and this is The House on Mango Street. This was a little bit more tricky because I couldn't find a real answer to when this book is set. Like, I've read people saying that it's set in the 1960s because of the cars they drive and stuff like that, but I can't be sure of what time period it is, so I went for when it was published, and it was published in the 1990s, so I'm reading this for the 90s, because as I said, For the Decades, it doesn't have to be set or partly set in that time period, but it has to either be set there or be written during that period. And that is kind of like to challenge myself to not read books from the 2000s, because that is kind of like, if I look at my shelves, the majority of the books that I read are contemporary or relatively contemporary, at least after like the 2000s. And that's kind of like the point of reading For the Decades, to read a book either set in that time period or a book published in that time period. And this was published in the 1990s, so I'm reading it for the 1990s. So here we have the books I am reading for YaTBRzy and For the Decades. So these are the books I have to finish if I don't want to take a punishment prompt in August. So I don't even know how many books these are. So that is 12 books in total, which is the same as was in June. That's fine, I guess. So this is what I'm reading for YaTBRzy and For the Decades, and all of that counts for the same thing. If I don't finish, for example, The House on the Mango Street, which I am reading for the Decades, I still have to take a punishment prompt for YaTBRzy because they're connected now. And then here are the 3 books that I'm reading for OlympicsAthon that I did not fit into YaTBRzy, which is fine because, oh my god, which is fine because YaTBRzy is until the 8th of August. So the first week of August is included. So I can read these 2 in August. This is the second book in the Hunger Games series in German. So, and the first and the third are in the YaTBRzy pile. So this I will have to read, include like with these. So that's fine. But I can keep these for August, which feels nice, you know? So that was it for this video. I hope you enjoyed, and please leave a like if you did. What do you think about my TBR pile? Do you think I will be able to read and finish all of them before August? I hope so. Have you read any of these? What do you think about them? Like, there are a lot of these that I haven't read, and I'm excited to hear your thoughts about them. And until next time, good reading. Bye!